I'm Jackie Lewis. I'm a senior consultant with Alvanon, and more importantly, I'm going to be your moderator in this session today, where I'm chatting with Justine McCarthy from Gymshark, and it's going to be quite an informal chat, we hope, quite conversational, and hopefully we'll have time for questions later after the session, but I am a bit of a chatterbox, so we might run out of time, so let's see how we go. Let's see how we go.
It's so strange not to actually be physically in Munich for ISPO this year.
I know. Well, you've been before, haven't you? I've never actually been. So, yeah, it's very different, isn't it? A very different experience. It's just, I suppose, it's what we've all got accustomed to over the last 12 months.
Absolutely.
So we're a couple of minutes in, so I suggest that we make a start. Thanks, Justine, for joining us today. I'm going to do some short introductions and some background before we dive in. We've got a couple of slides to keep us on track. As I say, most of the session we're planning it to be conversational. So we plan to run for about 30 minutes. We keep to time, allowing for a bit of time for questions and answers later. I hope that everybody's keeping well, most importantly, and keeping safe during these difficult times. So if you've got any questions for us, just drop them into the chat room. I can see everybody introducing themselves now, which is fantastic. So let's kick off. I'm just going to dive into our slides. We asked Justine to join us today to really talk about the art of being consumer-centric in terms of product development and how digitization fits with that from a fit point of view. I want to just talk about Alvanon quickly. For the people who've joined the session today who don't know who we are, just very quickly, we are a body technology company. We work with body size and shape data to inform most of the leading retailers and brands around the world in terms of shaping their fit and sizing strategies. And then if you want to know more about that, actually, there's another session later this afternoon. We have Jason Wang talking about the future of digital bodies. That kicks off at 16:55 today, so that's well recommended if you want to know more about what Alvanon's doing in terms of innovation and what is coming next. Is quite exciting to know more about what we're actually working on and the future of digital bodies. So Jason will be doing that later this afternoon. So let's talk about Gymshark. Justine, you can jump into this if you want to add anything to it, but really, you know, it's an incredible story, the Gymshark story. It started with Ben Francis, the founder, in 2012, who started up the business from his parents' garage. And now the business, which is one of the leading sportswear brands in the market right now, has over 4 million customers. So in 8 years, they've grown from virtually nothing to having 8 million customers worldwide. In 180 countries. They now operate out of 4 regional offices around the world and employ over 500 people. Well, part of the success of Gymshark, and again, Justine will probably add to this, is their connection with the consumer. And it's really shaped who they are as a brand. They are a pure play digital online retailer with 15 international online platforms, and they reach now over 12.5 million people through social media. So this is a big part of who they are, and I've heard Justine talk and the business talk about their customers as their community. So enough from me. I want to start by introducing Justine. Justine is a seasoned product development executive. She has 20 years experience in the industry in the active and outdoor sector, and she really earned her stripes with brands such as North Face, Animal, and Crag Hoppers. But she joined Gymshark in September 2019. Is that a good introduction, Justine? Does that do you justice? Do you want to add anything to what I've said so far?
No, that's. I've generally always been in product development, so kind of held various positions across all of these brands, but always predominantly in kind of outdoor and sportswear.
What I was going to go on to talk about, really, Justine, I hope you don't mind me asking this question. It brings me on to my first point. When I heard that you'd made that shift from Italy to Solihull, which is just outside Birmingham in the UK, I had to question why. Why would you make that move?
Yeah, well, it certainly was a hard decision, I have to say, to leave the Dolomites and return back to sunny Solihull. But I was really intrigued and fascinated by what Ben had achieved in such a short time. And so I was invited over to meet the team. I met with Steve Hewitt, the CEO, and I had to say I came away from that just feeling like I knew I wanted to work for this brand. Culture and values kind of really resonated with me. So so here I am. It's always culture first, people first at Gymshark, and I found that really refreshing.
Yeah, and such an open culture, I think, in terms of everybody in the business is involved, open communication, and really pushing the boundaries of what you can do as a young brand. That passion, you really feel that passion. I remember the first time that we met when I came to meet you over in lovely Solihull. I was impressed by how many people on the team already knew why Alvanon had been engaged and what we were looking to do with yourselves.
Well, one of our kind of key values here is really about transparency. That was, for me, I hadn't kind of seen transparency at that level before in other companies. And I think this really builds that trust and that feeling of belonging because the company is kind of so open, transparent with the employees.
And it all comes down to communication, doesn't it? And I see that completely extends to your consumer. Just moving on to talk about how that kind of culture and being customer-centric, can't get my words up, customer-centric translates to product development at Gymshark. Can you talk to us a little bit more about how that evolves and what that means?
We live and breathe the culture, the Gymshark culture, every day. So in everything and how we operate on a daily basis within our teams and kind of cross-functionally. But so work very, very closely with our community. And when you're in a DTC business, there's no filter anymore. So you really, it's more important than ever to be working as close to your consumer as possible. So it's really important that, and we drive that customer-centric approach with everything that we do. Our product marketing team work really closely with the insights team. So we're kind of being briefed in what to develop in terms of really purposeful product that's community driven, I would say. Yeah.
And if you think about it, if you've got 12.5 million people that you're potentially reaching through social media, I suppose it's a little bit difficult to ignore the voice of that customer. You must hear it loud and clear. And that must really inform how you develop product.
Absolutely. I mean, we another one of our values is accessibility, and I think our community know us and trust us and expect that from us. Basically, they're kind of part of the team, but that's our real focus.
And for us at Alvanon, when we embarked on this project, we found that really interesting. because as we started to make recommendation to you as a brand based on, you know, we're a data-driven business as well, and we're very customer-centric. You know, we have 1.6 million data sets that we use to inform some of the recommendations that we make to our clients and customers. But the difference, I think, in this project that I wanted to just touch on was how equipped you were to maybe challenge and refine some of the recommendations that we were making, because you also had so much insight from
Yeah.
your customer. Would you say that's a true reflection of
It is. Yeah.
our partnership so far? Mm-hmm.
We've got a growing insights team that basically, although the business became very successful very quickly through taking risks and through a lot of gut feeling, as I'm sure Ben would admit.
Yeah.
But now in the business today, Ben's very adamant that there's no more I reckon. So we basically use the data insights team to really validate and support key business decisions. And that included this project as well. So whilst we want to rely on the data and the recommendations that Alvanon first came with, we also knew that we didn't want to move too far away from our heritage, basically. So we used our insights team to really kind of do a bit more deep dive as to what was the perception of fit by our community, but in and out of our community. We didn't just reach out to our own community, but to really understand if the current fit was a barrier to purchase. So with a combination of our own internal insights work and then working with you guys, I think we really came to a great solution. I think what I really appreciate working with Alvanon is that their understanding of what we were trying to do and us not wanting to move away from our core heritage. I mean, when a brand becomes that successful so quickly, it's obviously doing something right. So whilst we're trying to set up,
that's a great point. That's a great point.
Yeah. So while we've still got a lot of catching up to do. We're trying to get a lot of kind of basic fundamental things in place so that we can really power ahead, and validating the fit was a big part of that. And there's so many other projects.
Yeah, I wanted to dive into that a little bit more with you, but I think listening to what you say there, I think this is always a challenge for brands, isn't it? When you grow so fast, it's maintaining that brand DNA, but supporting growth as well at the same time. And this was definitely a fantastic project for us, because I think from both sides, what we've delivered is the best results there for you with both of those things in mind. So do you mind, Justine, if I just dive a little bit more into that kind of importance of fit piece?
Did you want to move on with the slides, some of the slides, Jackie?
What's that, huh?
I'm just saying, did you want to move on with some of the slides?
Yeah, I'm just going to... Are you actually seeing a slide at the moment, which is the importance of fit?
No. Oh, apparently everyone else can. It's just me. Sorry about that.
Is it just you? Thanks, everybody. I was freaking out then. I thought, oh my God, I've been talking away, and nothing coming up. So yeah, let's just touch on that a little bit, about that importance of fit. I mean, you've worked with Alvanon before, haven't you? You know, you have been a client of Alvanon before, but this felt like a different type of project.
Yeah, very much so. I mean, you know, that initial question, kind of why is fit so important? The brand was born out of a desire to build purposeful product that fitted well, because at the time Ben felt that he couldn't find that anywhere else. So it will always be at the heart of that kind of strategy, or any future strategy. And I think, you know, in terms of like my involvement with this project, yes, I have worked with Alvanon before, mainly in the implementation stage. So was really exciting for me to be kind of part of this with my team, with my heads of as well, to actually just have more influence and input into the future strategy.
Yeah, and being sure that that profiling of that body was who you needed it to be, you know, reflective of your core customer. But there is a piece around this, isn't there, that Alvanon work with, as I said, lots of brands around the world. And one of the things that we really drive is having the tools in place to drive consistency through standardization.
Yeah.
So the interesting piece to this was how you maintained your pure brand DNA, the heritage, but then ensured that you were going to drive more consistency.
Mm-hmm.
That was the biggest piece, I think, within this, that we realized that, you know, some of it you are getting right because you know who your consumer is and you know who they are and what body shape they are and everything. We've supported in standardizing that for you. But there was another piece where you felt that you needed to do a bit more work to drive more consistency. Can we talk about that a little bit more?
Yeah, so you're right. When we came to the conclusion that we kind of wanted to work with our core body type that we had been working with, we've kind of tweaked that a little bit and made it in some areas maybe a little bit more commercial, but not moving away from that at all. The biggest piece of work for us in this project was really reviewing our body growth intervals. And whether what we had adopted was still relevant, whether it was still appropriate for the industry. So that's been a really interesting piece of work for us as we look at the kind of extending our larger sizes and extending also our smaller sizes.
And I think it sounds like a simple thing, but actually it's quite complicated, isn't it?
Oh my God, yes.
It's complicated, yeah, because as you change that, you know, as you apply different sizing to your product, you've got to take the consumer with you as well. You know, it in fact affects everything you do from a buying point of view as well.
Yeah.
But it's interesting that, you know, there's certain elements as brands that you might get right and you want to continue to do, but there's always room for improvement. So this really was about building blocks,
Yeah.
wasn't it? It's about getting some of the basics in place because your business had grown so quickly. It was kind of ahead of the curve, wasn't it? It was that little bit around playing catch up. Would you say?
Yeah, absolutely. We've we've grown so quickly. It's literally just been kind of, firefighting, and not firefighting, but just actually about just getting really good product out there. But if we really want to think about the longer term future, who we are as a brand, how we want to expand globally, there's some really basic fundamentals that we needed to get in place. So, just this year alone, we've adopted a new PLM system. We've embarked on this project with Alvanon. This is all about building the building blocks so that we really then can, once they're in place. So with this project here, it's about validating our core body measurements, reviewing our body growth intervals, getting all our basic blocks digitized and on the system, so then we can really power ahead with like our 3D strategy. At the moment, we're somewhat limited because we've still got those basic things to do, but a really exciting roadmap for us for the next few years.
Somebody in the chat has just asked how long we've worked together on this project. It's about 12 months. It's over 12 months, isn't it?
Well, we did get delayed, so just obviously
COVID happened, everybody, which is a bit of a barrier.
Yeah, I started in September 2019, and we started talking in the October. We basically, just before lockdown, I think you presented the first stage of the fit validation. Unfortunately for us, various limitations in place. We weren't able to do live model fittings, which was what was the next stage of the project, really. So we were a little bit in delay, but yes, we've been working together just over a year.
Yeah. And we've achieved a lot. I think sometimes as well, I think it's best to validate and test, isn't it, recommendations before you push ahead. But all of this work over the last 12 months has been kind of setting you up for the future, would you say?
Yeah.
Because the next step really is about digitizing some of those standards. And that's what I wanted to talk about a little bit more, because Alvanon in the last, I would say, 12 months is really seeing a lot of brands reach out to us and they want to get on this digital journey. They're, in some respects, they're trying to play catch up, because the last 12 months has made us think about working virtually. We've all been kind of forced to face into this truth, which was always out there, but we were a little bit afraid of. And Europe is, in some respect, I know some of the giants of the sports and tech apparel industry are doing really well in terms of digitization of the product development process. But generally in Europe, we're a little bit behind the curve. How would you describe where you are, Justine, on this
Where we are,
digital journey?
yeah. Well, yes, we are a digital business, but actually we're only just getting started in terms of our product creation process. We've got many projects kind of going on at the moment, as I just mentioned, and it was about really getting those basics in place so that we can build that longer term strategy. The next stage of this project is actually a really exciting stage that I'm looking forward to. That's about the digitizing the digital size set avatars, which is the next phase for us with you guys.
And I'm excited about that as well, because something that you've mentioned to me that I just wanted to bring up today was this whole kind of concept of being more inclusive as a brand, and what that means to Gymshark. I'm sure that having the virtual size sets, so you can actually see how that product fits across an entire size range, is really going to help you with that. Would you agree? Is that part of that strategy for inclusivity?
Yeah, I mean, there's various benefits that I see with doing this, but in terms of and inclusivity plays a huge part of it. I think traditionally, the product development process is actually quite laborious in terms of, like, we do tech packs, we send them out, we wait for protos, we get them back, and generally we always fit on that core body, whatever that size might be for whatever brand. So then when we go into size sets, I feel like it generally becomes a bit more of an afterthought of how that product looks aesthetically and fits functionally across larger sizes and smaller sizes. So for me, I feel that what I would like to see in the future is that a much deeper understanding by us as a development team of how our product will look and feel and function across all body sizes, right from the beginning. I sat in on a fit session with a double XL, and it was kind of really opened my eyes as to kind of the thought process that we need to really go through, not at the end, but right at the beginning of the process. And with with the digitized size sets, we'll be able to do that a lot more easily and fluidly with our suppliers. So not necessarily adding on extra work. The idea is to be able to reduce the number of samples that we request, and that brings in the kind of sustainability element of it in terms of reduced number of samples, but being able to see the product and how it fits. And
completely agree.
Sizes.
And that relates not only to fit, but also to style, don't you think, and functionality?
Yeah.
Whether you're making the right choices in terms of how much product you're buying in those fringe sizes.
Yeah.
All of these kind of benefits come forward from being able to visualize fit across an entire size range.
Yeah, absolutely. And it could be that, when you're only developing it on one size, and there's other considerations that you need to make that might actually change the construction. You might need a slightly different construction in that larger size. We've seen that a little bit more in our bras that we're developing, is that construction, the way it's engineered for that size small, it has to be adjusted for different sizes to really still give that level of support. So this size set avatar, the size set avatars, I think, is just really going to be game changing for us.
Yeah. And something you mentioned there as well, I agree. I think it opens up all sorts of possibilities. We are seeing as a company that in a lot of respects, the supply chain is driving some of this change because they really see the benefits and the ROI in terms of, I'll just move on to our next slide. I think we started to talk about some of the benefits for yourself. Yeah, the suppliers are already seeing the ROI for them, because a lot of suppliers, they're working off really kind of tight margins. And every time they produce a sample, particularly for an outdoor brand, if you think about it and the high sample costs associated there, it's eroding that very, very small margin. So,
I
it's
think
the right thing to do, isn't it?
Absolutely.
From a cost point of view.
The whole from a cost point of view and a sustainability point of view, but I think the manufacturing industry got put under quite a lot of extra stress during the pandemic. And I think if one thing that we all learned from that is that we really need to be thinking about how we can work in a leaner, smarter way. By reducing samples, reducing this stress that we put on the supply chain.
And that'd be a great legacy, wouldn't it, of this terrible year? Try and come out of it with a commitment to all work in a different way.
Absolutely. We were actually very fortunate during the pandemic. I mean, we didn't suffer too much in terms of delays and things like that. But what we did, we pride ourselves in being an agile business. And we need to actually really rethink about our whole development process and how we can be a lot more agile. If anything like this was to ever happen again, how can we fully own our development and be able to pivot the business as needed?
Digitization, I think, gives you that, because you were able to take risk, but in a more transparent and manageable way if you've got the right tools.
Yeah.
I wanted to just, well, before we move on, I wanted to ask you one last question on that. If you were to look back in 12 months' time, assuming all your digital size sets are in place and your virtual bodies and everything, and you're working on your digital blocks, and what would success really feel like for Gymshark, having implemented the Alvanon tools?
Yeah, well, apart from reducing the number of samples, which to me is a big part of it, creating a much leaner and quicker development process. So being able to work closer to our community. At the moment, we're still, we're developing purposeful, functional product that needs testing, and so there's still a time frame associated with that. Love to be able to work even closer with our community. So if we can even shorten even further our internal development process, I think we would definitely see that as a success. And as we kind of start to think about more globally as well, how we then look at regional fits as well will be huge for us. And that's where
you've brought me on to my next question. Actually, I'm just going to click through to the next slide, only because it just keeps me on track. It's that, how do you pivot that fit strategy, as your business continues to grow? If you think about the growth in the last 8 years, if it's global growth now, what does that mean for you as head of product design and development and your fit strategy?
We'll definitely need to pivot and change our fit strategy. So by no means are we saying that what we define today will be the long-term future. We will continually review who we are as a brand and ensure adopting the right fit strategies. When the brand was born, it's, you know, we were kind of aiming at social natives age 16 to 25. As we grow as a brand and as we kind of diversify and gain a wider audience, we will definitely, the fit will be at the heart of that. So we'll be looking, you know, how we can evolve and be more inclusive, whether that's with age, whether that's by region, etc. But it will definitely always be pivotal to our longer term strategies around fit.
So could you see different fit standards for different territories for the future? You think, yeah.
As I said before, you know, fit is really Ben's kind of, you know, that's the reason why he started the brand. So as we approach new territories, we'll definitely be looking to gain further insights and knowledge through experts like yourself, to understand how the body shapes are different and how they change.
Yeah,
we have already started with you guys on looking at that.
We have talked about it, haven't we? But you are right, because it's not just about offering more sizes in the same ranges. It's about customizing that product for different markets.
Yeah,
which takes a great understanding really of body shape and size, and
yeah.
So that's one for the future. So what this was kind of like something you said to me, and it's up in the office, isn't it? You see this kind of motto in the office: evolve or die.
Yeah.
And you know, the thing that struck me was how closely connected it was with the motto of our founder, Dr. Kenneth Wang, because the Alvanon motto is all we can do is evolve.
Yeah.
And then when we came to Gymshark, there it was up on the wall, and I just thought it's just so closely linked.
Absolutely.
But you talk to me about what that means for Gymshark.
I was recently lucky enough to be working closer with Ben in this last couple of months, and you know, we're now kind of like 500 employees, and I think 400 of those, more or less, are kind of here in Solihull. And I asked him, what do you feel sometimes when you're kind of walking through and you just like, you know, reflect on kind of, you know, where the brand was just a few years ago. He says, I'm never looking back. He said,
Yeah.
I'm always just thinking about what the next thing is, and that was that evolve or die. Never to be complacent, and to always be looking forward, and really being, you know, consumer-centric, as we mentioned.
And as we said before, we're 12.5 million people, and maybe double that in the future. How could you not be customer-centric? Fantastic, Justine.
Thank you.
I think we've got time for some questions, if you're up for it. Should we have a little look through what questions we've got posted?
I think a lot of them are actually Alvanon.
Oh, are they? Anybody got any specific questions for Justine right now? Here's one. Hi, Justine. As a fitness brand, have you thought about entering the footwear market? There you go. Not to put you on the spot.
Watch this space. What can I say? I'm sure if you were to Google it, you might
always looking forward.
Some information there. I have no footwear experience, so it wouldn't be sitting under me. But yeah, I'd say watch this space.
There was just a question here, I think, from Natasha, which is, with digitized size sets, is the consideration for how the garments move, as well as fit? Something that, you know, it's kind of replicating that feedback you would get from a live model.
Yeah, absolutely. We don't want to compromise to too much, but you know, you're also now, Alvanon have expanded their different poses as well, haven't they, on the body? So kind of bring that in. We would, I think in parallel, we need to do a lot more further validations as to kind of when it comes to fit and actually using the size set avatars so that we're in a comfortable place where we know that we can, you know, rely on them.
And there's a question here from Claire. Do you see your fits moving to digital, or do you feel that there's a place for digital? Let me read that again. Do you see all fits moving to digital, or is there still a place for, I think I understand that, fit and product on the body?
I see it becoming 100% digital in the...
I think that's the question.
Yeah, I still think there will always need to be a real life person testing and testing product, especially when you're a fitness brand and it's all about. But I think there's a really good compromise somewhere in that development process between the digitization and the kind of live modeling.
Yeah.
I
think, I don't know, I think it's just another tool to put in the box. You know, I don't think we'll ever get to, well, we might do in the future, but I'm thinking there's still probably a place for a live model, but digitizing fit and size set's just another tool, isn't it, to help us to be able to execute.
I see it as a tool to support it and to make it easier and to make it quicker and to, you know, but I don't see it necessarily replacing it fully. I think the two could, you know, there's a good compromise, as I said.
Complement each other. How are we doing for time? I'm just trying to see whether there's any other questions here that I think we've covered most of them. Any last thoughts from you, Justine, apart from evolve or die? Is that what more you can say after that? Is there?
That was a good finishing point. Evolve or die.
I think so.
Yeah,
I think so. So I'd like to thank everybody for joining the session today. I think we've had a great turnout. As I say, we managed to get pack more people into this session than we would have done if we'd have been having a physical workshop. But if you didn't manage to stay tuned in for the whole session, the session will be recorded and that'll be available shortly, so look out for that. And if you've got any other questions for the Alvanon team, if you want to know more about our collaboration with Reebok and Under Armour, then visit the Alvanon brand room. One last thing from me, remember about Jason's session this afternoon, because I think in that you'll learn a lot more about the technology and the innovation that's coming in the next 6 to 12 months. So thank you very much. Thank you, Justine, again, for being so open, so transparent, and great fun to be working with. I mean, we're really honoured to be working with you guys and being part of your journey. So thank you for that, and thanks to everybody else. Good night, good evening. I sound like a newsreader. Good afternoon. Goodbye. Thanks, guys.
Thank you, Jackie.
Thanks a lot. Bye.